Welcome to my older adult presentation. So for this project, I decided to focus on the developmental stage of integrity versus despair. This is stage 8 in Erikson's theory, and this covers old age, which is 65 and over. In this stage, individuals often reflect on their life, reviewing their success and lack thereof. Those who feel that they were successful in their life are often left with feelings of accomplishment and satisfaction and just have overall proven to have a better well-being. Those who do not feel satisfied with their life often feel a sense of despair and that they miss certain opportunities and, often may have regrets. So I'm going to get a little bit more into integrity versus despair a little bit later on in my presentation. But for now, I'm going to kind of focus on my interviewee and share some information about her a little bit. So, she is 80 years old, or I should say 80 years young. She's very vibrant and lively, and she just does not look or act her age. So, although my interviewee experienced a lot of obstacles in various stages of her life, I was really amazed by her ability to reflect so positively on the life she's lived. I was also really impressed by her ability to continue to find meaning in life at her age. And this being said, her ability to have such a positive impact and satisfied outlook on her life just made me want to dive deeper into this particular stage for this project. So, and in addition to that, I just felt that focusing on where she's at now would just do more justice to her. I will draw a little bit on other stages of her life in order to show how they have impacted where she is at now. So, some important experiences to note. In terms of challenges, she didn't really identify any particular crises that she underwent in this stage of her development. She did discuss some things that had occurred to her earlier in life, but one particular one that I think relates the most to this stage is the death of her husband. She was 63 when he died, and I believe he was as well. And according to Erikson, this stage begins at the age of 65. So this is right on the brink of stage 8. So I think there was a lot that they underwent in the relationship. So to kind of just give a little more context, when they were, I believe, in their 40s, he was 47. He went away to Africa for a business trip, and he got bit by a mosquito there that ended up destroying part of his brain. So after that, he was not the same. He was very physically impaired. He required a lot of attention. First he couldn't move, and he eventually was able to gain some of that movement back and was able to live, a somewhat normal life. However, he did not feel like himself. He was a lawyer, but he did not feel like a lawyer. He stopped practicing law. And he got into a lot of little side projects. During that time, he would make things, build things, do things in the community, just, whatever he felt like he wanted to do. And then eventually along the way, he also decided that he didn't feel comfortable in his body. He didn't feel like he identified as a man. So he started identifying as a woman. However, in this time, he stayed with my interviewee, and they stayed together for 18 more years until he died. And I think, this really impacted her. This was something that was very monumental, very pivotal in her development, in her experience, in her life. But I also think, that being said, when he did die, I don't think that death itself, and not, to speak for her, but I don't think that death itself had as much impact on her as the overall experience did those 18 years. I think when he died, she kind of expressed this sense of relief, because she had been taking care of him, and just, she admitted there were times when she wanted it to be over. She wanted it to be done so she wouldn't have this responsibility. She wouldn't feel tied down. I think she did a good job of, taking care of herself, and still did, what she wanted to do. She, hired a home nurse so she could go out and do things and not be there 24/7, but, obviously it's hard. So, and also I know I'm still referring to him as him, but this is how she, talked about him the entire interview. She kept referring to him as her husband. So I'm just going to go with those words. I think, for her, he was her husband, and, she is someone who's very, very active in LGBTQ plus rights. Like, he did a lot of work with the transgender community, and she does as well. She's very all about that, but I think, this is a very personal experience for her, and she saw him as her husband, and I think it was hard for her to see anything else. But going off of that, some accomplishments that are related to this stage in life. As we talked, she really said she didn't regret any major decisions, and I'll get more into that when I talk about this a little bit later on in my presentation. But she continues to wake up every morning and feel good about things. She described her bed as a trampoline, and she bounces out of it every morning ready to go. And if she doesn't have something planned, she has something to do. She's constantly writing letters to people who are important that have to do with social justice issues. She wants her voice to be heard. She wants, to advocate for people. And, going off of that, like, she makes sure that the activities she does in her life are fulfilling, that she's putting her energy into the right places, the places that she wants to put her energy into. And she's very particular about what she does. And she does do some, things that don't have to do with social justice. She swims almost every day, even in the winter. She lives in the ocean. She has a wetsuit. She does that. But for the most part, she doesn't feel the need to watch a lot of TV or movies, unless it's educational. She wants to do things that not only make her fulfilled, but, like, contribute to the well-being of others. And that also includes who she surrounds herself with. She's very particular about who her friends are, who she engages with, who she, lets into her life. So that's just a little snapshot on where she's at right now. So kind of going back to integrity. I didn't really feel that my interviewee identified any major crises in this stage of life. If anything, she's really been able to gain a sense of integrity despite a lot of the obstacles that, have occurred throughout her life. I think a big factor that played into this was probably her support system and how she was raised. When, she talked about her parents, she really spoke highly of them. It seems like they were a really good support. And as I mentioned earlier, they were very supportive with her husband's transition. She said that her mom even bought him a nightgown once, and she wasn't too happy about it at the time, but she admitted it was the right thing to do. His family, however, was not supportive. But when she talked about her family, it really seemed that they were a great support system and really just instilled certain morals and responsibilities in her that kind of supported her in life. And even now, her parents are gone, but she continues to have an amazing support system. And I think, not just in her family, but her friends as well. And yeah, I really think that kind of plays a role in how she looks back at her life and how she kind of handles where she's at now. So, despair. So, for those who do experience despair, there often are many factors that play a role in how they view their life. And these can include the following: social class, gender, race, ethnicity, mental health. I mean, I think mental health is a big one, right? Like, it impacts how able you are to really bounce back from certain situations. And in addition to that, one of the articles I read for my annotated bibliography discussed how culture plays a role in one's ability to kind of reflect on their life. For those who are from slightly different cultural backgrounds, therapists noticed that some people had poor feelings related to certain situations in their life because of a certain cultural expectation that was placed on them. So they felt they had to feel a certain way because of something that may have happened to them in their life that they did, regardless of whether or not they really felt that way. That just appeared to really play a role. And a lot of what the article I read kind of focused on was reframing that thinking and helping, the client to do that. So the second theory I chose to focus on is Freud's theory of psychosexual development. And this is the genital stage, which is puberty on. And this involves pleasure being centered on love, work, and maturing sexually. So, although I don't really agree with a lot of Freud's theory on development, I did think it was a very interesting one to use for this particular person and some of the stories she shared with me. So I think, for one, a lot of what she told me about her life really focused on her relationship with her husband and work. When she talked about earlier years of life, she did, get into other things, but once she got to pretty much college, it was all centered around work and her husband. And even a lot of her relationships were work related. She, mentioned to me at one point that a lot of the people she surrounds herself with are her colleagues, but she feels weird calling them friends, but yet they are, people she is close with, yet it's mainly work related, So I just thought, that was one thing that kind of related to this theory. Another was that a story she shared with me when she was in her 40s, late 40s, before her husband, or maybe early 40s, before her husband got sick, she had an affair. And I thought the way she shared it with me was just interesting. She shared that when she shared this information with her husband, his immediate response was, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I led you to that." And she was immediately like, "No, you didn't. I just wanted to do it." Her reason was she just wanted to know what it felt like. And she literally used the phrase, "It was an adventure." Which I just thought was very interesting. Looking back on that, she didn't really even appear to regret it. She didn't even really give it a whole lot of thought. She kind of just was like, "Oh, this thing happened." I think she put emphasis on it because it was there. It was something that happened in her relationship with her husband, but when she talked about it from her perspective, it didn't even really seem like something that impacted her that much. So I thought that was very interesting because, she was just exploring her sexuality. She was just like, this is the thing I did, and that's that. So I just thought that was very interesting. So the theory limitations. So one of them is that this theory focuses mainly on the individual person. It doesn't really give any consideration for factors outside of the individual that might impact their experience. Even as I talk about my interviewee, when I talk about the stage of life she's in right now, I can't really talk about it without going back to a lot of the other stages of her life. And a lot of the things that really impact her have to do with outside factors, her community involvement, her relationships, those types of things. So I think, this theory really, really lacks that acknowledgement. Another pointer is that it has been described as sexist due to the theory focusing mostly on male sexuality and male genitalia. It portrays women in a way that isn't really accurate, at least from my opinion. And yeah, it's focused on sex a lot in general, but very much from the male's perspective. And obviously there's a lot more to development than that. And the last bullet I put here is that it's just really difficult to apply in therapeutic settings. And our textbook goes a little bit more into detail about this, but it's just not a theory that can easily be applied with clients in therapy. So that's my project. These are my references. But yeah, I think overall, I really enjoyed this process, and I hope that you all enjoyed my presentation and kind of just felt, I don't know if I did her life story justice, but I hope you all just kind of felt what I felt when I shared her story with you, that, just really touched and impressed by her ability to reflect so positively on her life, despite all of the obstacles. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.